So John, before you take or listen to you talk about your design direction through that journey of your design stage and how you choose the design, with respect to the heating demand of the home, you have experience heating the house almost for the entire last winter, right? Winter of 2022 slash 2023. What has been your experience with the heating demand on the building? How much energy were you using?
Yeah, so we installed a wood stove, which is a little bit counterintuitive with the passive house design, just because you have to puncture through the envelope to get your chimney out. But it was pretty important for us to have. We've got our own forest, so we've got essentially free firewood. But we only used a cord and a half, roughly, of firewood, and a lot of that was birch wood, which if you've burned wood, you know that it's marginal. uh, it would probably a cord and a quarter if it was maple, that's something like that. So really, I mean, typically, I think you would probably, I mean, my neighbors would burn 8, 9, 10 cord, right, over a winter. So that when we say that 70 to 90% reduction in energy, that's it. That's the proof in the pudding, as they say. So there was that, and we also noticed that whenever the sun's nice and low, we got nice big south facing windows. Whenever the sun shone, no matter how cold it was outside, I mean, it could be 30 below. If the sun shone, it was comfortable and warm, 23 in the house, with no energy on, no stove, no air system, nothing. So, and it would stay warm for, days after that. So we, it took us a while. It took a couple of weeks of just saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe how comfortable it is. It's you kind of have to pinch yourself and be like, no, that's it. There's no heat on, and it's really great in the house. So it's been really it's been a wonderful first year. And as anyone knows, in Ontario, or the Northern Hemisphere, it's one of the darkest years that we've had in 80 years or so. So with a little more sunshine, I think we're going to probably get that cord wood down to about one cord maybe this year. We'll
That's
see.
amazing. So if the sun was on for more than a day, a couple days, you would essentially go a couple days without even requiring heat on at the inside of the home, or very
Right.
little heat, more
Right.
than anything.
It was like a couple of hours, and we would get sort of the next day, the house was warm, so I mean, you'd get some glimpses of sun and you kind of thought, okay, well, we're good for another 24 hours.
Mhm.
Which is pretty powerful. It's a powerful thing. And like I said, it was such a dark and gloomy winter, so I'm looking forward to knocking down that energy consumption even further this winter. So
Great. And so natural characteristic or performance factor facing the house due south with the low angle of the winter sun shooting right through the building. How has that experience been different in the summertime?
yeah, we made a few decisions that weren't sort of purely passive house by the book. So we made the windows a little bit bigger, a little taller on the south side, knowing that it would be right on the borderline if the sun would penetrate or not. You could, if you looked at the shadowing in our place on the big south windows, right at the solstice, right at sort of June 22nd, their sun would be in maybe half an inch, right on the edge of the line. But then, so as the August rolls on, you start to see a little bit more sun coming into the building. Um, and we also made the decision to add a couple of windows, fairly, I mean, decent sized windows to the east and west. One overlooking we have such a great view out to the east, so essentially over the kitchen sink, a fairly nice sized window, which in those hot summer mornings, you'll get quite a bit of sun coming in, and so there's a bit of a trade-off there. And then there's one, kind of a 44 by 44 window up in the loft to the west, which is also a bit of a giveaway in terms of like energy efficiency. But putting a bed underneath that window, and the bit of kind of trade-off for that westerly sun has been worth it. We decided to go through a full season. We might even go through 2 full seasons to decide are we going to do any shuttering? You know, because we've toyed with the idea of having an external shutter to that westerly window. If a heat wave really grips and that sun keeps coming in, you know, in the evening. But so far we don't use the air conditioning much, so we kind of think we're gonna just keep it as is and sort of feel blessed that we can enjoy the views and keep our thermal energy, you know, our thermal usage down. So,
What was the design experience like?
yeah, we knowing like once we had the land, we knew that we wanted to kind of stay sensitive to the agricultural nature of the area, and so we kind of we settled on like a more traditional style, right? It's 12-12 pitch, and it's a really kind of, you could mistake it for a rural schoolhouse or a church even. A few people have dropped, you know, parcels off here or lumber delivery and said, was this an old church? Was, you know, and it's like, no, it wasn't. We wanted to look and feel like an old, you know, traditional building, but it's brand new. And so that was kind of something that we were pretty set on. We're kind of admirers of the tiny house movement a little bit, and we knew we would never live in one, but there's certain elements of it that we kind of see our house as a little bit like a tiny house on steroids, right? Where it's a little bit like not long and skinny. It's got the loft at one end, vaulted throughout the main space, and we kind of wanted that the airiness and the height and the volume, even though it's harder to control your temperatures inside. Again, like I said before, we were willing to make a few concessions because of, you know, aesthetics, things that we really wanted, the type of space we really wanted to live in. And so we wanted that vaulted feeling. We wanted it in the kitchen and living room area. And so the high ceilings and I mean, you can see, you know, behind me, right? That's kind of the loft, where the bedroom loft. But we wanted that design element in the home. And so that was what we went with. And we kind of knew that if we have those nice big south windows, because we've got this great south facing property, we could kind of marry the new with the old in a way. So I think, you know, once people walk up, if they think it's an old church, as soon as they get a little closer and they see kind of peek around the corner, they realize that's a new building. That's a new building with probably some pretty serious engineering involved because of that big opening we've got.
Would you have any tips or advice for people that are thinking about one design or another over another, or and you know, really having a difficult time coming up with some design direction? Is there anything you've learned that you think would be helpful to people?
Don't do a 12-12 pitch. No, a few times during the process, people were like, "So you're doing 12-12, eh?" And I was like, "You know, we are." My wife was quite passionate about it, and she was right. I mean, in the end, it's aesthetically and in the landscape, in the sense of place, it's, you know, we think it's pretty spot on. But I would encourage people to just kind of be open to it, right? Like to be open to different ideas. You know, and it's important to walk through homes and to walk through, even look at drawings and floor plans and to better understand scale. I think that gets lost a lot on people. And you know, I've worked on some houses recently, and shed roofs, by the way, much easier to build. But people they're really taking to them, right? They still gives you a sense of expanse and a high ceiling and whatnot. But I think it's really important for people to just get comfortable with, you know, how big rooms actually need to be. Like how far apart are things to remain comfortable without feeling awkward. A few friends of mine have built in the last decade, and more often than not, the feedback, you know, after we're kind of in the house and hanging out a bit, and they often will say, it's sort of a little too big. Like, I think this room is just kind of awkward, or like we weren't sure what to put here, so we put this piece of furniture, etc. So I think that's a really important thing to not just be to not just think bigger is better,
Mm.
because we felt that, I'd happily make the home, just more efficient in terms of size and space and if and layout, if it means that I can spend more on really important components like the envelope and the heating system, etc. Because I think, when you start trading off space just for the sake of space, what ends up cutting from your budget, right? So oftentimes, maybe some of your finishes get cut, or maybe the type of siding that you actually wanted has to get cut because now you're into it. It's going to cost a little too much. So I think, like, I would encourage people to just really get comfortable with layout and room sizes, and walk into, go visit a home, go visit a people having an open house, or builders showcasing an open house, or anything's going on. Well, go walk through it and feel what it feels like inside that place. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you get with room sizes and styles. I think you start to realize, boy, I didn't imagine myself living or wanting to live in a house like this, but after being in one or after visiting one, it's incredible. I really want it, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, being certain on your design. We often say now that, as we were going throughout the process, we would look back at the drawings, look at where we're at, and then being in the house ultimately. And I always say, no, the design's right. Like, we aren't looking back going, oh, we should have done this or we should have done that. It was, yeah, no, it's right. The room sizes are right. The layout's right. You know what I mean? So that was comforting to kind of keep checking in as we were going and say, no, it feels right.
Yeah.
So, really that comes down to homework, and just, if you're going to pursue house building, get into, dive deep into it, get into the house building stuff. And then you'll be sure once you're, in the river, that you're heading down the right path.